Hello friends, and welcome to the next video. In this video we're going to be talking about articulation. What is articulation on the drum set? It's the control you have over the phrasing, okay? One thing that you have to learn if you're doing a lot of big band work, one thing that big band playing taught me, that you must have your articulation together. Okay, one of the biggest mistakes I see in younger players is when a figure comes up, you have to play a figure, they just bash every figure on the cymbals, right? So that's a big problem. You have to make a distinction between short phrases, short notes, long notes, and you have to be able to communicate them in the way that the composer was intending, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. Hopefully you can see on the board what I'm writing. And I'm just going to write, whatever I feel, and I'm going to give you my process of how I come up with orchestration to articulate on the drums, okay? Orchestration means how you arrange everything on the kit, all right? So let's just start off with a real simple phrase. This phrase. Okay? 1 and 2 and. Now, you'll notice that this is a dotted quarter note, okay? This is a eighth note tied to a half note. So we're talking about long notes, okay? Pretty long notes. All right, so what is a long note on the drum set? A long note would be a crash cymbal, okay? Crashes. So this phrase is something you can very easily do, and it's one of the main phrases from my book, Working the Inner Clock Part 1, which you can get on my lesson site, all right, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to promote the, I don't want to tell you what to do, but if you're not on the lesson site, it's really like you got to get it together because there's tons of information there. I talk about this in depth there with all my methods. So if you really want to, learn what the pros know, you got to get on there. So 1 and 2 and, okay, we're in 4/4. 4/4, okay? Now, we're going to do it in a kind of a rock context, and I'm going to show you how to hit this phrase, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay? Looks simple, but what happened? I kept time. I did a setup. I did the correct articulation of the length of the notes. All right? Now, what you don't want to do is this. You see this phrase? You don't want to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? That's what happens when you start reading out of a drum book and you just think that whatever the notes are there, that you just hit it on the snare. Okay? Especially in big band, that was a problem where guys just, you're just playing along. Okay? These are long notes. What is a short note on the kit? A short note is snare. Okay? A short note also maybe can considered to be high tom. Low tom is a little longer, and bass drum is even longer. Okay? So, in this case, you have really long notes. You need to accompany them with the cymbals, all right? You don't want to go like this, for example. That doesn't sound right, okay? All right, so let's do the next phrase here. A brief introduction to articulation if you've never checked it out before. Let's see, I'm just inventing phrases here. Okay? So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right? So how would I do that? Now, what we have here is eighth notes. Are eighth notes short or long? They're short notes, okay? Shorter than dotted quarter notes, shorter than half notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? This is a short note too. So, you know, what I do basically, before I do any of the playing, I always try to sing the phrases, okay? It's important to know what style you're in, and you have to sing according to the phrases you have, okay? So, you know, it doesn't matter how you sing, just verbalize it, you know? So in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, dot, 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 okay? Dot, 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 dot. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Notice it's not this. Da, 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 da. Okay? The first mistake I see on, you know, young cats playing songs, when they're playing a song, is they just do this like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? That's not articulation. That's just bashing. Okay? So, how can you do this? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 5. Okay? All short notes. Now, in a rock setting is different than in a big band setting or in a Latin setting. So you have to be familiar with those styles. You have to be able to adapt this to every style when you sing it and play it, okay? Now let's say this is a long note here. It's attached to this, okay? A half note and the phrase continues. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's when you introduce the crashes, okay? You have a long note. This is an eighth note, but it's tied to a half note. That makes it a long note, all right? Remember, drumming, we don't have the privilege of forgetting about length of notes. You know, everybody thinks you just play the drums like 1, 2, and 3, 4. You know, just like an exercise, reading out of a drum book. That's not music, okay? When you approach the drums like from a reading standpoint in a drumming book, that's so you can get your reading together. Just reading the rhythms, but playing music and reading is a different story. Now I go to about this at length on the lesson site in my methods, working the inner clock 1 and 2. You know, you'll get a really good feel for doing this kind of thing. It has to become automatic, okay? It really has to become automatic, and you have to know what to do right away. Another issue is fills, all right? How do you prepare this kind of a phrase? You know, if it's just a phrase like this, you know, just one measure, that's one thing. But if it's in a song, you got to keep the beat, you got to set it up, and you got to play it correctly, okay? So I'm going to give you an example of what not to do, all right, if you're playing a song. And let's just play one bar up front, and then we're going to do the don't do this, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? That's long, 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 long. This is short, 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 long. Okay? Now, the more options you can have, the better off you will be when it comes time to interpret. So, what can you do about this? Short, short. Okay? To have something different to lead the phrase, you can go snare, high, snare, low. Or you can go 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, you can do a bunch of stuff. You just have to get used to thinking this way, okay? let's say this was a Latin tune, Afro-Cuban tune, okay? First of all, we wouldn't be in 4/4, we'd be in cut time, all right? So if this was a Latin, kind of Afro-Cuban type of thing, we'd be in cut time. And so things change, all right? Da 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 da, you know, a feel of Afro-Cuban medium tempo. This starts to feel like 16th notes. It's not 16th notes, it's 8th notes, all right? But in that music, you're reading most of the time in cut time. It's just the way it's written, okay? So 1, 2, 1, 2, da 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 okay? Short, long, okay? 1, 2, I'm just gonna play some time, like 4 bars up front, Afro-Cuban, cascara and whatever, and then I'm gonna play this phrase, all right? 1, 2, 3. Okay? Ba da 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 Not like this. All right? That's Nowheresville. Okay? That's no articulation. That's just like bashing and filling up the space with noise. Okay? You don't want to do that. Let's say you have this, which is another kind of common phrase. Ba da 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 da. 1 and da and 2, 3 da. Okay, da 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 da. This is slightly longer, okay, than that. Da 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 da. All right, there's very subtle things going on, but if you're hip, you can make that happen. Now, how can you make that happen? You notice in the last example, I just went, okay, because it was all pretty short, but this is da 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 da. I can take 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a little bit longer. This is longer, okay? The bass drum helps with being a longer feel than having the crash on the last note, which is a long note, okay? I'm gonna do the same example now, Afro-Cuban style, all right? Da 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 ba, okay? Remember, sing first. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Long shorts, okay? You see how things start to become really beautiful there with the proper articulation? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's a ton of things to do to make this phrase beautiful. You don't bash all the same length, okay? That's no articulation. Da 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 da, okay? Now, what if you want to do like funk? All right, so you want to have like a funk kind of a tune, and you have some real typical funky horn lines. Let's see what comes out. Let's take the same type of phrase so we don't get too far away from what we were doing. But we're going to be thinking in 16th notes. Okay, so let's do this. Da da da. Okay, like this. I hope you guys can see that. Okay, da 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 da. Let's do one more note. Let's add something a little bit different. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. All right, like this. Okay, so we've got 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a. Okay, time slash. Okay, time slash just means time, play time. Okay, so remember, sing. Sing is the key. Can't sing, can't play. 1 E and the 2 E and the 3 E and the 4 E and a da 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 da. Da 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 da. Short notes, all short notes, okay? Da 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 da. So if you're playing this in a funky context, I'm just gonna play one bar and then I'm gonna hit the figures with the articulation, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay? Da 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 da. Now, I just hit on the snare. The snare, short notes, remember. Okay? What I like to do a lot, if I see a phrase like this, I like to close it out with something a little bit different. You see, you know, this is a one bar phrase, 3 beats basically. But the last note, I'm gonna do something a little different. So listen to it again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, like that. Now, another thing you can do, remember that's a short note. Another thing you can do is push on the ride, okay? Now that makes it a little bit shorter, but to make it even shorter, you can push the bell of the crash. I mean, this is 2 rides, I have 2 rides here, but the bell of the crash, okay? So look, check it out how that sounds. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that gives it kind of like a different vibe. Now what you could also do is play all these notes on the hi-hat and the last one here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, or so many things you can do, you know, as long as you're conscious of articulation, all right? Of course, you can also do like this on the toms. All right? All depends on the music. Of course, the articulation helps a lot. You've got to project the music through the kit, okay? Now, another thing I like to do with articulation is I kind of like to give the phrases some life, you know. So if I'm gonna do snare, high tom, low tom, and then the hit, that kind of rounds the phrase out, you know. Da 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 bam bam bam. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so you get a feel for what that sounds like. So I'm just gonna improvise a little bit with that phrase and play it a bunch of different ways and see what happens. Singing is the key. Imagine a big horn line, you know, playing this. When you hear it in your head, it makes so much more sense than if you just read it, you know, 1 E and 2. You know, you gotta hear the music in your head. Da 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 da. 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now articulation depends a lot on the types of figures you're hitting as well. So some of those ways can be considered to be section figures. Other ways can be considered to be ensemble figures. Either way, your articulation has to be on point, okay? You can't do this, like in the other examples. That's just nowheresville, like we said, okay? You got to have the feel of the phrase. That way the articulation comes out real nicely. Okay, setups and fills, you know, that's a whole other story. Ensemble figures and section figures, that's a whole other story. I might make a video on that later, but it's all on my website, okay? It's all on the lesson site. Again, if you haven't checked out the site, check it out because, you know, everything's on there, a ton of material. Only 150 bucks gets you in the year-long program. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope that it helped you. Okay, folks, if you have any questions at all, just write me below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, peace. 1, 2.